Welcome back to the VINwiki appraisal panel, where we appraise the car collections of various YouTubers and automotive influencers. And today we are going to appraise the car collection of Rob Dahm. Rob has made an unbelievable impact on the world of automotive YouTube over more than a decade now. And he's certainly made his mark on the rotary community and even the exotic car community with a Lamborghini Diablo that I sold him while I worked at Lamborghini Atlanta. So we're going to go through all of his cars, but today's content, and so much content here on VINwiki, is brought to you by Auto Tempest. And you using Auto Tempest to shop for your next car is not only the most powerful way to do so, but it helps them help us make more content like this. So please check out Auto Tempest at the link in the description below to find your next car. They compile all the cars into one search by bringing the results from all these major listing sites into one place. It's where I start most of my day, lately browsing for cars that are far more expensive than I should afford and far more expensive to keep running than I should afford, but it works for any car, and I know that you will like it. As always, I'm joined by John Ficarra of Ficarra Classic here in person today. So John, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. All right.
So today we're going to dive into Rob's collection, and it is a strange one of cars that none of us are really experts on, but we've been doing some research to try to nail down exactly what his car collection is worth. And the first one is among the weirdest, I think. It's his C5 Z06 that is 13B swapped.
Okay. What do you think?
It's un-LS swapped. You know, it's one of these things that I think these cars are wonderful automobiles out of the box. I have no idea what it would be like Dorito up in there.
Well, you D06 to Z06, right? You took out the drivetrain. They're good platforms. They handle well. They're pretty well mannered. But then you put a rotary in it, and granted, I watched his video. The thing makes over 500 horsepower, makes all the rotary sounds. It's the strangest connection. Like, you have the super Corvette geeks, right? And you have super rotary geeks together. I don't know if they mesh together. So I don't know if there's value in it other than it's something awesome for his channel. So I was saying if he had to sell it, and if that came up for auction and people didn't know who he was, they'd say like 15 grand. That's kind of where I'm at with it, really. Like, that's what it's worth.
That's probably true. I don't know anybody is out there typing into Auto Tempest 13B as a keyword on a C5 Corvette search, but I gave it 30 grand, not necessarily just because of the provenance. We try to avoid that here in these appraisals, but I don't think you can avoid it with a rotary swapped Corvette, which leads us to his next Corvette, a little bit more of a rational thought, or at least something we could find some references for. He came by here as soon as he purchased the car. It was the first crashed C8 Corvette, which made a lot of news, and he bought it. I think it had a certificate of destruction at the time, if I'm not mistaken, but now it's rebuilt, and so way to go, Rob. Probably driving it around somewhere. You know, I've never been a huge lover of the C8. It's actually what sparked all of Car Trek, was us finding cars you could buy instead of a C8 Corvette. But, you know, they are worth some money. I said 50 grand.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's worth some money. Rebuilt title. I'm going to give him an extra 55 grand for that car.
There you go. Somebody will buy it. Corvette lovers everywhere. Now, the next up is his 1971 Dodge Challenger that is 800 horsepower Hellcat swapped. Really cool looking yellow car. You know, these resto rods, we thought that they had kind of come and gone, but if you look at the latest Barrett-Jackson numbers, they are sky high. I think there's somebody that would give him 80,000 bucks for that car.
I agree. I think those things are still hot. People really want them. I think it crosses generations because you have the original muscle car and you have a very modern engine. So I think it appeals to a lot of people. I think $90,000.
Strong money, but I agree somebody's going to pay for it, and he continues to build all these cool cars, which requires a good tow rig. And he's got a Ram 2500, just a generic, something to pull things around in. It doesn't get much better, and they also don't get cheap anymore. You never pick up a cheap big truck, and so without knowing a whole lot about it, because it's not like Rob makes content about this truck, I just said 35 grand. How wrong could it be?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if it's older, who knows? I don't know what the year is, so I'll put it at 30. Let's just say that.
Speaking of old strange things that Rob seems to have access to, 2000 Honda Insight in red. He made a video about how much more difficult it was to drive than his Lamborghini. And we were talking about a Diablo, that's meaning something. So I don't know how bad it is, but I just said 5 grand because it'll probably get somebody to their next thing they have to do.
Well, I actually, Insights, at least in California, people still want to drive and buy those things. And so they actually go for a little bit more money. I'm going to give them $7,500. I do have a quick story, if you don't mind. I had a friend who worked at the Stanford Linear Accelerator. He was literally like a rocket scientist. And he bought one of these for his wife when they came out. And he was really curious about how the electric hybrid motor worked. So he put sensors in the car to see how much electromagnetic radiation or things was going on. I guess it was so extreme that he took it back to the dealership and returned it. And I've never seen a report on that, but if it scared a scientist, I don't know if I would be driving a Honda Insight.
Well, you heard it here before the class action solicitation, so maybe don't go drive that one as much,
There you
Rob.
go.
But do drive your Lamborghini Diablo 6-liter car. He has a 2001 yellow 6.0 pearl yellow that I sold to him back in Lamborghini Atlanta. It had already been crashed once at that point, and Rob's managed to crash it twice. But it's been rebuilt and done well. It's still got a clean title, very unclean Carfax. My kind of car. I also have a 3-accident Lamborghini that I love very dearly. It was his childhood dream car, and I remember when he called, he was the first person on a credit application that I ever listed social media income for. He was so embarrassed to say that he made some money on YouTube, which back then was a really foreign idea. But I'm so proud of how much he's driven it, how much he's used it. He took it to a real 200 miles an hour in a story that he told here on the VINwiki channel. You know, these things are all over the place. They're climbing high. There are rumors of some mint condition pearl orange and pearl yellow cars bringing into the sixes, almost $700,000. Wow. His isn't worth that, but I put it down for $475,000, even with the miles, with the history. I think somebody pays him that because now you're paying $300,000 for a very early, Dumb and Dumber Diablo. And so I think it's well bought in the high fours, and I hope he doesn't sell it for that or anything higher.
Well, I'm no expert in this. Usually, when we're sitting here with you and John, I just go in between your two numbers. But, I don't know how much of the original Lamborghini is left if it's been crashed and rebuilt 3 times. I don't know if I would go that high. I think if it's worth half of what like the perfect ultimate car would be worth. So I'd put it at like 350, but I'm no expert, but that's my guess.
That's a fair logic, but I still think he shouldn't sell it at any number. Keep it forever. It doesn't get much better.
I agree with that.
He's also got a 1967 Lincoln Continental. You got those suicide rear doors, all the cool. Not an Entourage version with no roof. It is a hard top, but a really, really cool project car that he's been working on for a while. I think, these are kind of all over the place. They can certainly be 6-figure cars restored to perfection. This is not that. So in its current state, for what it is, $15,000.
I think that's generous. I watched the video of him trying to get it started, and you could see through the cars in certain places. You can find decent running versions of these. The sedans, not the convertibles, but the sedans, you can find decent running versions in the 20s. I think it's worth half of that. So I'm going to say $10,000.
Okay, well, I'm sure he'll make something great out of it. And he has made some things very great out of Mazda RX-7s. Obviously, he is the king of the rotaries, and he's got an FC car. He's got a 1988 RX-7. That's the white one. It's a 700 horsepower build. Super duper cool, quintessential Rob. I guess you might say an FD is more quintessential Rob, but still awesome. I said that one is worth $25,000.
A lot and just like the Corvette when he built in the rotary, a lot of the money's in the engine itself rather than the car. And that model was not terribly impressive or good looking. It was a ripoff of a Porsche 944. So I'll give him a little bit more money just because the effort he put into it is at $30,000.
Okay, there you go. But of course, the FDs we have to get to. He's got a 93 black car. That is a 3-rotor build as opposed to his most extreme 4-rotor build that we've seen so much content on. I still think it's super duper cool. I think somebody for a clean, awesome build RX-7 pays him $100,000.
Woo! Okay. I don't know for the 3-rotor. Maybe the 4-rotor we're getting up there, but I think realistically, maybe somebody would pay that, but I think somebody would actually pay. Somebody who is actually interested in that car for what it is might have $75,000 in the bank, maybe. Okay,
well, or they'll know Premier Financial Services to call them to get it done.
Yes.
So let's talk about the 4-rotor car. Rob's most famous build, one of the most famous project cars in all of YouTube, spanning well over a decade. Thousands and thousands of hours have gone into this. It was so cool to get him to race against Hoonicorn on the Hoonigan Versus thing that they set up. And, just seeing all the amazing things that this car has led to Rob getting to do. He's got a segment on Top Gear now. He does so many awesome things, and this car is really where it all began to grow and explode in so many different ways. And so, I know that you couldn't replicate this for any feasible amount of money, but the blood, sweat, tears, and just ingenuity that's into this car, I think it's 250 grand.
Whoa, really?
I do.
Holy mackerel. I don't know. Did he build gold into it?
Probably somewhere.
It's hard to value these cars since they're built custom. Custom cars, people put a lot of money into them, rarely get half of that back out. And it's an incredible build, and it has an incredible history. The story is what would sell that for that kind of price. I think realistically, if it pulled across a block and somebody had to buy it for the car you may be looking at 125, maybe 150 grand. But maybe his name, maybe the history, maybe all that is worth another $100,000. I hope so for him.
Sure.
But I think the car itself, no.
And I think it's not going to matter because I think that one stays by the Lamborghini
one
for the long run.
Yeah.
He also has started a few more interesting race car projects where he's putting rotaries into different things as he might. But he's got a Formula Mazda and an IndyCar project. And, these are just the coolest garage decoration you could possibly imagine. Not something you're probably going to get out there and really mile up on a racetrack. But I thought that the Mazda was probably worth 20 and the IndyCar 40.
Yeah, I agree on the Mazda. That's about you can get those for about 20 grand, complete and need a rebuild. I think the IndyCar, it's not hard to find those, in fact, these days, because his does not have an engine in it. A lot of them aren't sold with the engines. The engines are sent back to the manufacturer, so you get them as husks. They look great on the wall, but they are wore out usually, and it is expensive to get those things back up to spec. And a lot of stuff is custom made. So it's like a great wall hanging for about 30 grand, but he's going to spend a lot of money turning that into a real car.
Well, he has done that on many cars before.
Yes.
So we always wish Rob the best, and we enjoy the chance to sit on the sidelines, watch, and cheer for him. So when I run through that whole collection, I get to just over $1.1 million, a seven-figure car collection for our good friend Rob Dahm.
I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't get to the $1 million mark on my number. I'm just shy of 9. So, yeah, hey, somewhere in between is $1 million.
There we go. Absolutely. So an amazing collection of amazing cars from an amazing guy, Rob. We're proud of you. We appreciate your stories here, your friendship, and everything that you've done for the YouTube culture and automotive culture. So thank you so much, and tune in next time for another appraisal from us here at VINwiki. And that's all made possible by Auto Tempest. So please, right now, click the link in the description below and go search for your next car on Auto Tempest. You doing that allows us to make more content like this, but much more importantly, it is the fastest, most powerful, and best way to shop for your next car. You'll get all the cars in one search.